You guys, I am so glad you're here because today is going to be a good one. We all love to talk to dogs, right? Like, if you love dogs, whether or not you own one, you probably talk to them just like they're another human, as if they understand every word you say. And even though we know that they don't actually understand everything, sometimes it really does look like they're just hanging on to every word, doesn't it? Um, the reality is that they do learn some of our words, but not others. But why is that? And how do they learn? For those of you who haven't met me yet, let me introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Malloway. I am a dog trainer and behavior consultant, and I make it my job to help you have the most magical relationship possible with your dog. And today, I want to put some serious power into your hands. This stuff isn't just about your dog learning words. By the end, hopefully, you'll see how you can use this information to change your dog's behavior and even their opinions. Not a joke, not a trick. This is just behavior science, and understanding it and making your world a better place. Diz, please no. Let me welcome you guys who are already here. I love you so much. Wagging Tails Dog Training, thanks for saying hi. And CK and the Perry family. So good to see you all here. So yeah, those of you who I just named probably are already following me, but if you're not, and if this stuff sounds interesting and you'd like to see more of it, of course, hit the subscribe button on YouTube or the like or follow buttons on Facebook, and share this stuff with anybody else who you think might be interested too. Love it. Okay, so why do dogs learn some words and not others, right? This starts with relevance to the dog's life, right? What does the dog feel matters to them? Right? And this could be good things or bad things, but if it matters, if they have an opinion about it at all, they're going to try and pay attention to what things in their environment allow them to predict those things will happen. So those are the words that they're going to learn the meanings of. And well, actually, meaning might even be going too far. Meaning might be attributing too many mental capabilities that dogs maybe don't have, but they do, like for some words, the understanding a meaning, like the way that we understand it, is far too complex an idea, but they certainly can learn. Certainly can learn a meaning that they attribute to it because of its predictive power. I'm having trouble like explaining this in the moment, but maybe it will help to take a look at some of the words that dogs commonly learn. So if you, as I go through this, maybe you can think of some words that your dog knows that you never intentionally taught them, but they learned anyway. I think I've got a list of pretty common ones, but go ahead and put them in the comments too if your dog knows some words that you never intended to teach them. Big one is walk or walkies. And if any of your dogs are listening, I'm sorry for for saying these words if they can hear it. But yeah, they pick on walk and walkies. Maybe they picked up on something like cookie or treat or chicken or their other favorite food. Maybe just food. Oh, hi, Tish. The better half. You're funny. Let's see. Some dogs might learn the words for bone or chewy. A lot of dogs learn outside. Did you see this one? That's a word he knows. Some dogs learn park, maybe, or something like toy or stick or ball if they really love those things. Some dogs might learn words like cat or bird or squirrel if they're very focused on little critters, or maybe just dog or friend. A lot of dogs pick up on those things. And Hungry. Hungry might be another one too, or dinner. If you say that right before you present them with a meal. CK says grandma and grandpa. Yeah, those are good ones. If there's people that the dog loves, but that maybe don't live there, they can really pick up on that one. Jason says tater chip. Really? That's an interesting one. I would not have guessed. Tish says water, treat, out, bed. Yeah, really good ones, guys. But yeah, so why do they pick up on these words and like not any of the other words that I mean, we talk a lot, most of us. I don't know what the stats are. I should have looked this up, but like how many words in a day does the average person speak aloud? And then how many of those words are said around our dogs, right? Des, you're going to rip my sweater, bub. So yeah, it's because most of those things that we just named are things that the dog finds relevant. They want to know when grandma or grandpa is coming over, or they want to know when a treat is coming. They want to know that stuff. So what they do is they find a way to pick out what's going to let them know that it's coming. What's the earliest sign? Dizzy, do I need to move your chair, Bubba? Or maybe I just need to change my shirt. Sweater was a bad thing to wear with Mr. Paws and Claws over here. Okay, so yeah, a funny thing about that list of words, you may have seen, if I'm not on TikTok, but I'm seeing like little videos shared elsewhere, little TikTok clips of people doing the tell your dog a story using words they understand meme. And it's hilarious because the dogs will be like not paying attention at all until they hear those words, right? Those single words within that story, and all of a sudden you get the or some dogs like run to the door if you say something like outside or park or something like that. Tish says she loves Lay's stack, so that's why she learned tater chip. That's so funny. CK says, please don't get on TikTok. You know what? No, I can't handle any more apps, no more social media. Like I mean, I hesitate to say it, but I feel like I'm too old for that. Like, it's just, I'm overwhelmed. There's too much. So no, I do not foresee TikTok in my future, but I do know that this trend is going around, the whole tell your dog a story using words that they understand, right? Because most people who have dogs, they see this in action. Most dogs do pick up those words that matter. Even though we might be saying those words with the same frequency as tons of other words in our vocabulary, but dogs pick up on the words that matter to them. And there's a specific way that they are able to pick out those words, and that is what I'm going to get into today. So yeah, no, it's so those videos, those TikTok videos, it's just so interesting that the dog like they'll look like they have no idea what's going on as their person is telling this story, until they pick up on those words. And it's it's clear to us that like they don't understand the grammar, they don't understand the context, and you can see this in action because like it's like blank stare until they say walk or outside. And some of the dogs, upon hearing those words, they just get up and leave. They run to the door because they think that walk means they're actually going for a walk, right? And it's all because those words in normal context, they predict that something's about to happen. It's all about predictive value. So it might be something especially good like a walk, or it might be something especially bad that they learn those words. But if it's of importance to the dog, they will learn. So they'll be paying attention, and they will be actively looking for signs. And it's not always our words. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Like, yeah, I want to talk about how to teach dogs words, but the principles behind how they learn those words can be applied to other things too. You'll see by the end here. Summer, hi, welcome. Thank you. She says she likes my sweater. Looks amazing with your skin and eyes. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I like the pink and purple and green. Those are my colors. So yes. Where was I? Yeah, so if the dog cares, good or bad, whether it's about to happen, they will look for signs that that thing is about to occur, and it's because knowledge is power. If they can predict it, they can prepare themselves. And so say, one example, really common, is say the dog knows what cabinets the treats are kept in. And the first couple of times, like you put the treats in that cabinet, and the first couple of times you went there to get a treat for your dog, he probably didn't do much until he realized the treat was out and it's happening. But after only a few repetitions of going to that cabinet to get the dog a treat, as soon as you're standing in front of the cabinet, they're like, they perk up, they're like paying attention, if not running over, all excited and waggy tails. Yeah, so their behavior actually changes once they start to learn, and that change in behavior is how you know that they've made this association between the predictors, the you walking to that spot, you opening that cabinet or that drawer or wherever you keep them, that it predicts that they're getting something yummy. So they want to know when you're going to that spot. I mean, what else do they have to do in the day, right? Like most of our dogs, unless we're providing them lots and lots of enrichment, which we should be, what else are dogs doing during the day, you know? All they have to do is like pay attention to what we're doing and how it has relevance to them. Yeah, it is also, so I said they pick up on things that matter that are good and things that matter that are bad. And one example of this might be bath time. Like most dogs that I know hate bath time. Even if they love swimming, they hate bath time. I will never understand it, but hey. So this is why they run and hide when you're getting ready to give them a bath. Even if you feel like you've given them no clues, they picked up on something. Maybe it was you grabbed that certain towel, or maybe you just have that look in your eye, or maybe even you're like trying to get them with that it's okay and they know, they're like it is not okay. So they pick up on whatever is the earliest reliable sign that bath time is about to happen, and they need to know how to avoid it. That's why. Tish says their sheep who knows it's bath time. I hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah. So if they hate bath time, they're gonna find the earliest reliable predictor that bath time is coming, and that's their cue to take off and hide. And as a side note, if you are the type of person who like your dog knows this, and so you feel like you have to like do the whole it's okay routine to get them, don't do that. Don't do that at all. This is I wanted to, this is like a side note that I really wanted to just draw attention to for a second, because this is like it's just a perfect example of what I mean when I tell you guys don't lie to dogs, you know? Because when you come at your dog and you're like it's okay, and it's not going to be okay for them, what you've done is just broken their trust, right? It's okay predicts bath time, so it's okay becomes the predictor of bad things. So you've broken your trust. It's a relationship killer. It is not. It's just bad, and then you're gonna have to figure out a new way to get your dog, and it's snowball. It's bad. What would be better is just to tell your dog, like if it's something bad like bath time, just tell them it's bath time. Just tell them the truth. Yes, the dog is still going to run and hide and try not to get in the bath, but at least you've been honest and you've protected you've protected the relationship, you've protected the trust that the dog has in you, and you've protected other situations where you might feel the need to comfort them. If you do want to say it's okay another time, that hasn't accumulated this negative association from the bath time scenarios. So yeah, if you have to do something your dog doesn't like, time to go home from the dog park, time to trim your nails, time to take a bath. I recommend training those things, but that's a thing for another day. But if it's not trained and you just have to do it anyway, best thing is just to tell them what's coming. Just be honest. They're honest with us. Let's be honest with dogs. CK says Cusco would go in his kennel and go hunker down way in the back. Had to get down and encourage him out of the kennel for bath time. Yeah, they hate it. Bath time is tricky. So it's a good example because dogs have such strong feelings about it. So most of them, they learn. They do. Jason says, it's bath time. You're going to hate this. Too bad. Let's get wet. Pretty much. I mean, yeah. Like I actually, I'm trying to think if I should get into this now or wait until I've covered a little bit more. I like to, like, in the same way that we teach them the good words like walk and cookie and blah blah blah. I like to have like a not just a general like I'm talking at you kind of thing, but I actually like to use a specific, like the same phrase. Like luckily I don't have to bathe Dizzy all that much. Like I probably bathe him every 2 months. But when I do, you know, it's like I say that bath time, I'm sorry, you know, same phrase. And he doesn't run, thank goodness. He just kind of like gets really sad and is like, I guess we're gonna have to get this over with. But you know, and I hate to make him sad, but again, it's sometimes we have to do these things, and I would rather protect the good relationship, like my if I had a Venn diagram of our relationship, and like this circle is like all the good things, and there's just like a tiny circle of the bad things. Like it protects that good bubble. CK says, I would let him know that when I was running the shower or bath for me, that he wasn't getting a bath, it was for me. How would you let him know? Because I've been trying to do that too, like, because Dizzy avoids the bathroom when I go in there to take a bath or a shower, and so I'm like, I'll bring, this is silly, but I'll bring dog treats in there, and I'll like be taking a bath and just toss dog treats for him while we're in there. So it's like, the bathroom's not a bad place. The tub might not even be a bad place. But I am going to let you know when I do have to scrub a dub, you know. Yeah, so anyway. So yeah, don't lie. Protect your relationship with your dog. Don't break that trust. It's so hard to build back up. Yes. So the predictive power of one thing happens and then another thing happens. So the dog, if A predicts B and B matters to the dog is going to learn A. And this is also why postal carriers who deliver dog treats along with the mail get fewer frenzied dogs barking at them. I heard that, and I don't know if this is true or not, but someone told me that postal carriers are not allowed to carry dog treats, but I know a few who still do or did, and they're gonna have much better luck with dogs because instead of the arrival of a stranger predicting like some scary clanking sounds or mail being, you know, shoved through the chute and the dog feeling like that's an intruder, now those same sounds predict a treat is coming, and why would the dog feel the need to like bark like crazy at a treat? You know, so it changes their behavior. So that predictive value, like, it matters. Yes. Okay. So the important thing that I'm trying to get across here is that the order matters, right? So when we're teaching dogs words, oh dear, phones are ringing. yeah, so it doesn't help the dog to predict something that's already happened or that's already happening. Um, they only need to pay attention if it comes before the thing that's of relevance to them, right? So if mail carrier comes and then a treat happens, the mail carrier, they're gonna change their behavior or their feelings or both, most likely both, about that mail carrier because the treat happens after. The mailman is the predictor of treats versus mailman is predictor of just scary noises out front of your house. um, if you were to try and change your dog's feelings about a mailman and you gave him a treat before the mailman came, like then the mailman has no predictive value of anything, right? Because the treat already happened. So the order that you do these in matters. And so this is the beautiful thing when it comes to teaching our dogs words, because there's lots of situations every single day that we don't have control over the order of things happening, right? Like in the going to the cabinet to get your dog a treat situation, you can't give your dog the treat before you go get it from the cabinet, right? Like that's just physically impossible. So we don't have control over that order of things, but we do have control over when in time our words occur. So when we're teaching our dogs something like sit, as a simple example, it doesn't help us to tell them sit after they're already sitting. Like that doesn't make any sense. And yeah, so we have complete control over our words and when they occur. And like I said, you want them to occur before the thing that you want them to associate with that word, not during and not after. Before is going to give you the best chance. Now, some dogs are very clever and they will figure it out if it occurs during, but after is just going to be confusing. And it's why I tell people, like, I see a lot of people, or hear a lot of people rather, who are working with their dog and they'll ask them to sit, the dog sits, and then they'll say, good sit. And it doesn't help. It doesn't help your dog learn that word because dogs don't learn backwards in time. They can only learn going forwards. So the sit comes before they actually sit. And so they learn what that word means because the word predicts that action, which predicts a cookie, hopefully. And so, yeah, so it's, I totally lost my place here. Bear with me, guys. Yeah. So yeah. So in the good sit scenario, best case scenario is the dog just, they take the good sit that comes after the actual sit as just praise and they ignore it and it's whatever. But worst case scenario is you've you've broken rule number 2 of teaching dogs these associations, which is keeping a really close 1-to-1 ratio of word to behavior. Because what happens then is you've said sit, then the dog sits, then you say good sit. So you've said sit twice, but the dog only sat once. So you've got a 2-to-1 ratio, meaning that the dog has a 50% chance of really understanding what that word actually means. And I love, I used to love to do this. I would have people swear up and down. They come to a foundations training class and we're covering basics like sit. And I get a lot of people who they've started training before they brought their dog to training class, which is great. But they come in and they're like, oh, like we don't need to do that. My dog already knows sit. Does he? Like, does he really know that word? Yes, promise, he knows it. I'm like, okay, so call the dog over and I'm like, strawberry. And the dog, guess what he does? He sits because he doesn't know the word. He's very clever and he's picked up on other cues that predict that he should probably sit if he wants a treat. So they learn maybe person standing in front of you and looking at you means if you sit, you'll probably get a treat. Or maybe they learned that if you're next to a person in this room sitting, probably has, they pick up on other cues. Dogs are very observant of their environment, and like I said, very clever at picking up the best, most reliable predictor of that they should do with the behavior or of something that's relevant to them. So yeah, if you really want them to understand those words, you want to make sure that it's as close as you can get to a 1-to-1 ratio of them hearing that word to that behavior. I've been doing this is a really inconsequential, silly example or experiment that I've been doing with Dizzy. And that's just trying to teach him the words of some certain fruits and vegetables that he's allowed to have. So sometimes if I want to give him something, before I get it out, I'll say the word. So it started off, I would just be like, carrot, and then I'd give him a carrot. He's in the hall and he's facing the other way, and his ears like went back, like, did I hear something? Does that matter to me? So yeah, it would just be carrot, and then I'd give him a carrot, or blueberry, and then I'd give him a blueberry. And no, it doesn't really matter if he understands these words. Like, it does not matter at all. But what it allows me to do now is I can ask him, do you want a carrot? Do you want a blueberry? Do you want a green bean? And instead of just like staring at me blankly, now he'll either perk up and like look at me or come trotting over. And that change in his behavior, now he has a way to tell me that he likes those things, or two, if he wants that in a given moment. It gives him a way to communicate with me, or at least me a way to know, am I just handing you things and you'll just put anything in your mouth, or do you actually like this? And based on his changes in behavior, I can tell, like, does he really want this stuff, or could he care less? Because the alternative, if he didn't like them, if he didn't want them, is, he would just look away or walk away or completely ignore me. If after a few repetitions there's no change, I know that, like, he's not a huge fan of that food. So it's a way to find out his preferences, which is cool. Not like the most important thing you'll ever train a dog to do, but it's kind of cool to know. So yeah. Now some, and just to be clear, that I when I'm teaching him those things, like, I always just have to make sure that I say it right before he gets it. And so I'm keeping the word and the fruit or vegetable or whatever, they're close in time, and also it's always word right before the food, and I don't usually like say those words if I'm not going to give him one, unless I'm telling Siri we need to add it to the grocery list. So yeah. Something that we often get the order mixed up on is our dog's names. Now, when we name a dog, we don't often think of it as a cue, but that's really what it is. Your dog's name essentially is a cue to get their attention. That's what all of our names are, really. It's a individualized attention-getting cue, I have my name, Jennifer, and if anyone out in the world said Jennifer, like, I'm gonna look. It's an attention-getting cue. So, but that's not always how we use it. We use it in a myriad of ways. But yeah, like, we often, we might say it when we're mad at the dog, like, they did something wrong and you're like, Lucky, Dizzy. And we yell it before. I mean, you guys would never punish your dogs, of course, but it happens. People do. And those dogs, they learn that sometimes their name is a predictor of good things, and sometimes it is a predictor of bad things. And so they're getting mixed signals, and so they're going to offer a mixed response when hearing their name. And also when we're especially if we're out like at a dog park or in public somewhere, people will often like they'll give the cue. If they want their dog to sit, it'll be sit Fluffy. When it would help the dog out more to say Fluffy sit instead. Put the name first, because like I said, like that order matters. If you said, I mean, if you weren't already giving them other cues like standing right in front of them and making eye contact, and you were just like, recall's a good one, a really good example of this. Like a lot of dogs at the dog park probably know the word come. So if you yell come and then Fluffy, if Fluffy doesn't know Fluffy means recall, then you may or may not get a recall. But if you would say Fluffy, get Fluffy's attention, and then say come, she knows that come is for her. So yeah, you want to, it just makes more sense to give them their name first, get their attention. And then when you have their attention, when you give them a cue, like sit or come or whatever, you're much more likely to actually get that behavior happening because you've already gotten their attention. It happens all the time. I see people giving a dog a cue when the dog's not paying attention, and we're just not setting them up for success. And so if then we get frustrated because they're not listening, they're not doing it, it's like, well, let's get their attention first. So it's a really good way to use their name as its true purpose, as an attention-getting cue. So yeah, name first is going to help your dog out way more. So yes. So okay. So we've been talking about rule number 1 of dogs learning words, that the word comes first. And then we mentioned rule number 2, which is we want to aim for that 1-to-1 ratio. The good sit was an example of breaking that 1-to-1 ratio. And yeah. I mean, lucky for us, dogs are very smart and they'll pick up on other things in the environment. But if you care that your dog actually understands the words that are coming out of your mouth, you might want to know how these rules, laws of behavior work. So So rule number 2, don't say it if the thing that it means isn't about to happen. Don't say blueberry if you're not going to give your dog a blueberry if you want them to know what blueberry means. Don't say sit after they've sat if you want them to know what sit means. There's a rule number 3, and that is, I've actually touched on this already as well. If you don't want your dog to be relying on other predictors in the environment, then we have to weaken their predictive value. So like, okay, we'll stick with the sit example. I have a lot of people who say, well, yeah, he sits just fine when I'm holding a treat out, but if the treat's not there, he won't sit. That's a perfect example of the dog who's they don't feel the need to pay attention to the words because they've got a really reliable predictor that if they sit, they'll get that cookie. The cookie is the predictor, and it's the most reliable, so they only need to sit when they see that cookie. That's how they learn. So if we want the sit to be the most reliable predictor, the sit has to come out of our mouths before the treat appears. And there's a whole way to like fade treats out of training in that context, but it just illustrates the point that, like, if you've got food out, or for some, a lot of times if you're wearing a treat bag on your waist, like I do when I'm training, treats in your hands, treats in your pockets, treats on your belt. Those are really, really good predictors because usually those things don't happen unless you're training and you're handing out treats, right? So the dog, they'll learn that if that thing is out, they'll listen, they're paying attention, you've got their focus. But if those things aren't out, they're probably not getting a treat. This will happen if you do all the training when you're training, and then you just ask them to sit outside of training, but you don't intend to give them a treat. They will stop listening pretty quickly. So what we do to follow rule number 3 is sometimes you just get treats out and the dog doesn't get them. Sometimes you put your treat bag on your waist and the dog gets nothing. We weaken the predictive value of the things that we don't want the dog to pay attention to, so that the dog will learn that, those words you're saying, those are the most reliable predictors. I see. And voila, you've got a dog who pays attention to your words. Okay. Now, of course, they're not they're not actually like going through that thought process, because they don't have language and grammar the way that we do. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what their actual thought processes are. You see the change in behavior, so that we know that these laws are in effect. So you can follow them and teach your dog words, or teach them anything you want, by understanding that relationship between A and B, and how A predicts B if B matters to dog. Let's see. CK says, okay, new puppy. How do you get your dog to learn their name while all the other things you're trying to teach your new puppy? So I like to teach the name. That's like one of the very first things I teach. And honestly, all I do for that is I just pair their name with food. So name is A, food is B. So I just make sure that I say their name and then get a treat and give it to them. And I do repeated pairings of A then B, A then B. And then we'll take a break and nothing will happen, or I'll say words that I don't ever need the dog to learn. I don't know. We'll do something else. Maybe there will be no treats for a while, and then, Fluffy, here's a treat. Fluffy, here's a treat. This usually, like this type of learning, this way that dogs pick up on things, as long as B is potent and valuable in the dog's eyes, they pick it up so fast. It's so fast. So, and especially with a puppy, like it does not take very long to teach them their name. And it's why I think it's so funny when I hear, like, I'll be at the park or just out somewhere, and I'll see somebody like trying to get their dog back, and they're like yelling treats, treats, or they'll be like waving a bag of treats, to try and get their dog's attention. And I'm like, if your dog understands treats, then your dog could just as easily know their name or a recall cue or something else. You would have taught them the exact same way. You just have to, instead of asking, Fluffy, do you want a treat? And then giving them a treat, just say Fluffy and then treat. And they will really, really pay attention when they hear that word Fluffy, It's just the principles at work. And we have control over these words. We just have to understand, like, how that happens. So hopefully you do now, and you can put this into action. It can be really fun to see how your dog picks up on things. When you see that behavior change, it's working. So yeah. But you might be wondering, like, CK, your question about like you're trying to teach them other things. So you might also, like, while you're teaching them their name, it's like say you're working on your name and you're working on sit and down and a bunch of things all at once. Honestly, like, I teach their name first. Like, I'm not even worried about sitting down. Like any like obedience type behaviors, that truly my last priority with a puppy. Like, they're teaching them their name and getting them properly socialized. Those are my top 2 priorities with a puppy. Like, yes, because I spend a lot of time with a puppy, like when we get ours, yeah, I'm going to start teaching all the other stuff too very early. But my main focus is going to be on socializing. It's way more important. And socializing is all about this whole A to B relationship. We want interactions with humans to be predictors of good things, interactions with other dogs to be predictors of good things. Places, you want the sounds of heavy traffic, predictors of good things. Walking on different surfaces to be predictors of good things. So that is what socialization is. People, I didn't mean to talk about socialization today, but it's so important. People get, I think, a little bit confused because that word's become such a buzzword. People talk about socialization all the time for good reason. It is important, but a lot of times there's not an in-depth explanation about what it means or what it should really look like. So I think the general understanding of socialization, hi Bubba, is you just think my dog should meet dogs and people. And for a lot of dogs, it ends there. That's not going far enough for a great many dogs. That's not enough. One, you have to make all of those interactions very positive for the puppy, which usually means keeping them brief and involving food, toys, play, stuff the puppy loves. Same thing with going to different places and interacting with different things and surfaces and sounds. Like, that is socialization, is making it positive for the puppy. And it's this exact same principles. We want to make sure that the thing we want them to learn is good. So in this case, the sound, the place, the person. We want them to learn that it's good. That comes, and then the party comes, then the food and the play and blah blah blah. So yeah, that's important. Luckily, puppies are just sponges and they learn tons of stuff, so they can easily learn their name and then all the other things that you want them to learn. And then you just want to be aware of how you use their name. And this is true for their whole life, right? Like, just because you taught them their name when they were little, doesn't mean that we can then go throwing their name around willy-nilly and use it however, right? Like, if if I call Dizzy, if I'm like, Dizzy, bath time, he might not like to hear his name so much after that, like, because he doesn't know if Dizzy is going to precede something bad like bath time, or if Dizzy is going to precede something good like it's training time or whatever. So I only ever want to use Dizzy's name if what follows is good for Dizzy. He's like, you're talking about me, hello. Yeah, so yeah, it's also like why, the stereotypical, like, when your parents use your full name, like, throughout day-to-day life, if my parents want my attention, they would just call me Jennifer or Jen or whatever I was going by at the time. But if I was in trouble, you get the whole Jennifer Rebecca Malloway, it's giving them it's a different, oh my God, it's a different cue for me, right? So it protects me hearing my name. Even though if they ever say my full name, I'm probably going to be like, uh-oh, like, what did I do wrong? It creates this distinction. So yeah, so if you, don't ever scold your dog. I don't even want to recommend that anybody ever scold their dog. But if you do, like, don't use their name, the name that you want them to respond to. You can protect that word by saying something else. Yeah. Okay, so, yeah. All right. So, let's see. Yeah, this stuff is all just based on the principles of classical conditioning, which were figured out and beautifully outlined for us by the great Ivan Pavlov about a century ago. And a lot of times we learn these principles. If anybody who's ever been in like a basic psychology class, Psych 101, everybody learns this stuff. But it's presented in a way that it's irrelevant to us and kind of boring maybe. And so unless you're like a super psych nerd, for a lot of us, we only retain that information long enough to pass the test, and then we forget about it because it doesn't really matter, right? That relevance. This is another example of like if that information had mattered to us, we would have retained it, right? But it had no relevance to us. So that classical conditioning didn't get conditioned. It didn't get learned. So yeah. Until you learn that it's super relevant in your Tiz. Ouch, Bubba. My sweater says ouch. I do not like that, Sam. I am. Yeah. So until you learn that these basic principles about psychology can have a huge, massive influence on your relationship with your dog. You can change their behavior. You can change their opinions and their feelings about stuff by just using these simple principles with rules 1, 2, and 3. And yeah, Jason says, poor Dizzy heard carrot blueberry treat over and over and is like, okay, give me something. That's totally right. And it's totally mean of me to to have said all that stuff and then not made it happen, right? So and what happens then is, if I really care if he knows those words, what I've done is just weakened the meaning of that word. Like in Dizzy's brain, those words, every time I say it and then the blueberry doesn't happen, blueberry means less and less. And yes, I'm saying it over and over, and he's like, well, there's no blueberry here. I see you. I see what you... Oh, Diz. Hey, Diz. What do you say? Nope, that's not it. Okay, so yeah. So hopefully you're starting to see here like how these nuts and bolts of behavior science can have a real impact on your dog and their behavior. And maybe can you think of some ways that you might be able to use this with your dog? Maybe it's stuff that matters, like you would like them to stop barking at the mailman, or maybe like Dizzy and I, you'd like to just to teach them some random food words that they can start to recognize. But yeah, like what else? How else? I like that, Diz. How else could we use these principles to teach stuff to our dogs? What would you want to teach other than the stuff we've mentioned? Obviously, sit and down and their name and blueberry, obviously. Like what else could we teach our dogs using this stuff? These are the same principles that I'm using as I'm teaching dog, hello dog, as I'm teaching Dizzy to accept nail trims, nail filing, or it's the same principles I'm using to try and teach him not to bark at other dogs or the neighbors. Yeah, I mean this is when I talk about like the laws of behavior science, it's they're at play at all times with all of us and our dogs, constantly. There's not a moment that goes by that that these aren't at work on us and our behavior and our feelings and our dogs as well. And so just once you start to see what's going on, it's really cool. You can manipulate those laws to get the effect, the outcomes that you want. So I think that's really cool. I think that's a massive power that we have to, like, we're talking like we have the power to control their feelings, but like we're doing it for their own benefit in most cases, right? So everybody wins. Dizzy gets a treat. He doesn't know that word. I don't usually use the word treat. I usually say like cookie, or I don't know, something else is going on. So he doesn't actually know that word, but what do you say? Good boy. Good boy. Very nice. Yeah, so I don't know if it's just words you're playing around with, no big deal. You can teach your dog any word. Just say that word before the thing happens, and your dog will pick up as long as the thing matters to him. Um, but of course, if you are talking about something that's maybe a little bit more complex, like the barking, like if your dog is barking at people or at other dogs, um, it there might be other stuff at play, than just simply like, well, just make those things the predictors of treats. It might take a little bit more finessing. So if it's something that matters, like those behavior issues, highly recommend getting a trainer on board, especially a force-free, fear-free trainer, to navigate those issues, because yeah, it's just, you never want things to go wrong, anybody to get hurt, anything like that. So if those are ever a concern of yours and your dog, recommend calling a trainer. And I can be that trainer. I do one-to-one behavior consultations, or if we're not a good fit for whatever reason, happy to find solid recommendations for people. I love referring to my very, very qualified colleagues. But yeah, it's always good to have a pro on your side when navigating more complex or difficult behaviors. But now you have this foundation of the principles underlying where some of our dog's behavior comes from. I know this. It's almost dinner time. So yeah, uh, hopefully this helps. Would love to hear how you guys put this into action. Um, and of course, always just want to say again, if you think that anybody else might find this helpful, please share the video. And if you like this stuff and want to support me in being able to share more things like it, please subscribe, like, and follow on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. You know the drill. All right, cool. Well, I will let you guys go so that Diz can go get some more food. And hopefully you guys enjoy your wonderful weekend. Happy weekend. All right, see y'all later. Bye-bye.